Hello, footy fans, and welcome back to the Chip and Chase podcast here on a Wednesday. So you know what that means. We're ready to rip and tear into everything that is Supercoach, basing it from round 21 of the NRL season and looking forward ahead into round 22. Once again, this one is recorded on YouTube. So if you are just listening on audio platform, head over to the YouTube channel. You can see the face cam. You can see everything that we have up on screen and a lot more things that we're going to discuss that it might just be a little bit easier if you're a visual viewer. So head over and do that. For those of you who are watching along on YouTube, thank you for being here. And you guys can see up on screen how we scored. Of course, a round 21 score of 1,404 points. We went up 291 places into a season rank of 8,073. Total score for the season, 23,449. So the top 5% of scores. Honestly, look, really happy with the score. I thought getting above 1,400 was a shoo-in for to go up some good ranks. To only got 291 is actually a bit surprising. There were some incredible scores. The fact 1,404 is only the top 10% of scores for the round is pretty mental in my opinion. There were some people in the 1,300s in a lot of my leagues that I thought, you look at them and I'm like, they're having great weeks this week. No, apparently not. There were people scoring 1,300, mid 1,300s and going down in ranks, and it sort of blew me away, to be honest. So there was a lot of decent scores out there that people could have picked up on and went really high, which evidently some people did. But look, green arrows regardless, we're happy for that. And, you know, getting a score above 1,400, I'm pretty darn happy with. So, yeah, 291 places up to a season rank of 8,073. Look, we'll take it as long as we're getting those green arrows and, you know, we're moving up the ranks. Being in the 8,000, I'm pretty happy to be here. I definitely am confident in my side moving forward to make a really big push back in the back end of the season. Let's get right into the actual team, however, and talk about how they all did. Starting from hooker, Harry Grant, 58 points. That includes a try. So I was a bit disappointed in that one. Of course, there was no line break on the try. It came off a Rabbitohs, who'd they verse? Eels drop ball. So I was a bit sort of lucky, that one. But just, you know, you take 17 points away from that. He's scoring 41. Not really ideal from my hooker. He got a bit of a break. They've also now got Harry Grant back into the side run. Oh, sorry, Harry Grant. They've got Cameron Munster back into the side run on 5/8, which means Tyron Wishart has moved to the bench, which we'll discuss in the team list changes. But I think that does mean good things going forward for Harry Grant. He's sort of one of those players that you actually want in a bit of a reduced role, because when he comes on and he's fit and tearing, he's going to do more in that time, in my opinion. So we'll have to see how that one all plays out. But 58 points at face value isn't that bad at all, so we'll take it. Jake Simpkin, Manly really reduced his minutes this round. We didn't play him, so it didn't really matter, but 16 points from him is a bit worrying now when we're looking for AEs and looping and whatnot. So not really happy with that. Unfortunately, Gordon Chan Kum Tong, who came on for him in that game, looked really good as well. Made a lot of good attacking plays, Chan Kum Tong. So I'd assume Simpkin's role is going to stay in this sort of reduced way. But we'll have to wait and see. You know, before that, I think he's been really good for the Eagles, a really good pickup. Another thing to note is that they do have Lachlan Croker. He's returned via New South Wales Cup. So maybe in the next couple of weeks, Croker comes back into their side for the back end of the season, which I actually wouldn't hate, because Simpkin as an AE, I'd prefer him to just not be in the side. You know, if Harry Grant goes down and I don't have a hooker, I'll just use one of my trades on that. But hooker's not really a position I want to be using too many trades in or playing my backup hooker. So I wouldn't actually hate if Jake Simpkin falls out of the side. But yeah, his 16 points didn't count for me this week. The front row position, Adam Fanua-Blake, 95. He did have 107 before updates. I thought he was going up. I thought he was absolutely fantastic for the Warriors. To go down to 95 with a try in that is actually a little bit disappointing, but, you know, again, taking that score at face value, really happy with that sort of score. He's been doing some great things, Adam Fanua-Blake, especially recently. The first couple of weeks after I brought him in were a bit tough there, but he's going good now. Happy to have him for the long run. His front row partner in my side, Josh Curran, 53 points from him. Happy with that as well. Also picked up a little bit of an injury, but I believe he has been named and he's ruled pretty healthy for the Bulldogs next game, which is really good for us. Payne Haas, a lot of people, a player in a lot of people's minds this week. Someone that we will talk about a little bit in this podcast, but we'll have to see whether or not we bring him in. Off the bench, we didn't play either of our bench front rowers. That's Terrell May, who scored 39 points, and Viliami Fafita, who didn't play. Obviously, one of my nuffs. Actually, I believe he's my only nuff. Terrell May we'll also discuss a bit later, so I'll just leave him for now. Heading into the second row position, David Fifita, 88 points. I mean, he just keeps doing it. You love to see it. Angus Crichton, who, of course, we brought in last week, 49 from him. So a bit disappointing that I'm pretty sure it could be one of his lowest scores of the season, and it was when we brought him in. Disappointing, but again, a player that we're happy to have for the long run. He does have the bye in a week's time, so, keep in mind that if you're looking to bring him in, I'd probably wait until after the bye at this point. But yeah, 49, yeah, what can you do? Fermor, 62 points from Beau Fermor. Love what he's doing. He's been so good. I love that he's got that centre wing eligibility now. Not sure we're actually going to look to move him on. Just really happy to own Beau Fermor. Off the bench in our second row, we had Britton Nikita, who scored 43 points. Not ideal. Not ideal at all. Would like a lot more from Britton Nikita, but Sharks have a good run home. I think he can definitely do that. Homole Kawatu did not play, obviously, out suspended. And Jack DeBellin, we didn't play, but he scored 38 points for the Dragons in only 42 minutes that he played on the field. So a little bit worrying that his minutes are reducing, especially if we do look to play him later on. Let's get into the halfbacks. And the big one of the week, Nathan Cleary, with the highest score of the 2024 season, 175 points, pipping out Tom Trebojevich's 174 from the week prior. Luckily, we had the captain on Nathan Cleary, so we got that doubled to 350 points. It was almost make or break for the season if that happened. If you didn't own him, if you did own him, or if you didn't captain him, those are the sort of three boats you can be in, and all were very tough unless you're an owner and captainer. Luckily, we fell in that boat of being an owner as well as a captainer, as he put on one of the greatest halfback performances I've seen. He's an absolute weapon. So, yeah, really happy for that. Could have killed our season if we didn't do that. So, lucky stuff there. Sam Walker, 111 points from him as our reserve halfback as well. Love that. A lot of people sold Sam Walker to get to Nathan Cleary. I was very adamant. I bought him in a few weeks ago when I could have held off. I didn't need to use trades in that halfback position, but I wanted a slice of the Roosters and their draw to come. A lot of people selling him, so really good to see that he sort of pays them back in a way with 111 points. Love that. In the 5/8 role, Jaden Campbell, another easy 100 points. A lot of people looking to sell Jaden Campbell. I could not for the life of me understand why. I think 5/8 is it's a very dire position this season. Of course, we have Cameron Munster coming back, so maybe that sparks it up a bit. But beyond Jaden Campbell, there's not really many fantastic options. You got your Matt Burtons, you got your Dylan Browns, Lockie Galvin to an extent as well. But I think Jaden Campbell was by far the pick of the bunch. So people selling him, it blew me away a little bit. And this is why 100 points, and it was an easy 100 points. He didn't even look that fantastic, but he pulled it out of his bag. So love that from Jaden Campbell. Jai Gray pulled out 53 as our reserve 5/8. We didn't actually have the reserve on him, but he was our backup. But 53 points for Jai Gray. Into the center wings, 64 from Dominic Young. We'll take it. Look, he scores really well all the time, and Roosters have a good draw to finish. I think he's got a few more hundreds left to give. Ruben Garrick, the tough one this week. 15 points from him, of course, failing that HIA, which, Manly have the bye next week, so he was going to miss that game anyway, but really disappointing to see him only get the 15. Could have been a lot higher, but again, a lot of people own Ruben Garrick, so I wasn't the only one in that boat. Jesse Ramian, 55 points, even after missing 15 minutes of the game with a HIA as well, so he's an absolute freak. No attacking stats again, that's all just base power. 55 points from my center wing. Absolutely adore Jesse Ramian. Ronaldo Mulitalo, 66 points. He is now out for 4 weeks, I believe it is, with a knee injury, which is tough. Someone that, we have a few options whether or not we keep him or move him on. We will sort of discuss in our trade section of this podcast. But 66 points, look, we'll take that for the week. Greg Marju did not play. Alex Johnston, 4 points. Another player who went down injured. Down with a syndesmosis injury, which means he's out for the season. We didn't play him this week, luckily, because the 4 points would have been absolutely killer. But yeah, really disappointing because he was someone that we really eyed off as our 6th/7th center wing for the run home that would play on matchups. I'm a big Alex Johnston fan. I've sort of always owned him at really good points of previous seasons. That he's really helped me go on a run. Timed it late this season to bring him in. Got him for 74 points the week before, which was good. And then, didn't play him for his 4 this week. But got him for some good cash generation, which was nice. And now we will have to look to move him on. But it makes things easier. Originally, we were looking at moving Kale Ito onto Kalen Ponga. Now we have a few injured options that we can move on instead. Casey McLean, this is another one of our reserves, but he scored 54. There's another try in that, which was a little bit disappointing. He's been basing about 50 in the last couple games, Casey McLean, and then to come out and score a try and only get 54. A little bit disappointing, but again, at face value for someone at his price, we take those points. Happy with that. Reece Walsh, 57 points from him as our fullback. Happy with him as well. Broncos got demolished, so for him to score 57 I'm pretty happy with that. I still believe in him for the run home. Always wanted to own him, and I'm happy I do. And Kale Ito, who is currently in our fullback position just with the duels, scored 84 points as well. So really happy with that. That sort of wraps up how the team went. Before we get into our trades, we will talk a little bit about all of the team list changes, or at least the main ones that happened. So for the West Tigers, Justin Olam returns from a knee injury in the centres with Stafford Toa out. Luke Laulii is replaced by Solomon Alamalo at wing. And David Klemmer is back at front row with Fanua Pole out. Nothing too Supercoach relevant there, though. For the Cowboys, there's a few implications here. Sam McIntyre starts at front row with Jason Taumalolo out with a cheekbone fracture. If any of you own Taumalolo, that's a stinger. Harrison Edwards also comes in at lock forward for Ruben Cotter, who was out with that head knock. So that one's probably got a fair bit more Supercoach implications with Cotter being fairly highly owned, so tough luck there. Hillam Luki also returns in the second row, which moves Kulakefu Finifuiaki to the bench. For the Warriors, big stuff here, and I love to see it. Chance Nickel Klukstad returns at fullback, moving Roger Tuivasa-Sheck to the wing and Ed Colsey out of the side. The centers remain as Ali Leatau and Moala Graham Taufa, who I thought were quite good last week, especially Ali Leatau. If you own him or if you're looking to buy him, I still think he's a great purchase. Just be wary that the Warriors still have the bye in round 27. So the last, game of the season, they won't play, and it could be proved to be a hard week in general with restings and whatnot. So just be aware of that before you bring in an Ali or a Roger. The other one there, of course, Shaun Johnson returns from his injury at halfback with Tamari Martin dropping out of the side, which I thought was interesting. I actually do prefer it though. Now I think Tamari Martin has been the best Warriors half by form this season. Maybe Luke Metcalf in the early rounds, but for an extended period, I think Tamari Martin has been our best. However, I think Shaun Johnson and Tamari Martin are a bit too similar in the way that they play at the moment, or at least they're both controlling halfbacks, and it sort of doesn't bring out the best of each other. So I think having Chanel Harris-Tavita as our 5'8" is actually the better move at the moment. Really good defensively, has a good running game. Love that for Chanel. Also important to note, Luke Metcalf makes his return from injury in New South Wales Cup, so he could be coming in the next couple of weeks. Maybe even as early as next week, depending how he plays. So just be careful if you are a Chanel owner. Your time could be drawing to a close with him. For the Warriors, nothing else really going on there. Tom Ale comes onto the interchange for Jackson Ford, but not too much there. Eels, however, big stuff here. Blaze Talangi just announcing that he will be leaving the Eels at the conclusion of this season, which it blows my mind in a way. Eels have done so much to accommodate him and really give him a future and promise him this and promise him that and offer him big money. Looks like he's going to go to the Panthers, which, makes sense. You're going from the bottom team in the comp to the top team. And I think Panthers are trying to get his brother, already have his brother. So it makes sense, but I feel for the Eels because you blood a young gun like that who comes through the ranks and does everything for you and you tout him as your future and they leave. I hate that sort of stuff. But regardless, he's still in the side, Blaze Talangi. If you guys still own him, I'd still be looking to offload him though, especially with this news. I don't really see them trying to develop him any further. Not too much else going on there that is Supercoach relevant. However, let's move into the Dolphins and the Roosters. For the Dolphins, they've actually named an unchanged 17 despite the loss to the Titans, so not much going on there. For the Roosters, Joseph Manu returns from his injury back in the centres, something that they very much need. But again, be wary if you are picking him up. The Roosters do have the bye next week, so just keep that one in mind. If you're already with a lot of Roosters, Tedesco, Young, Crichton, Watson, Sam Walker, these are all really highly owned players. You don't want to be left too thin if you buy another one this week in Joey Manu and then lose them all next week. So I'd probably be looking to wait and see how he comes back from injury, but also a matchup against the Dolphins is pretty tasty, so I'll leave that one up to you guys. Not much else going on there for the Roosters. For the Titans, they've also named an unchanged 17, so nothing there. Oh, there's a motorbike going on outside. That's really, really good. Broncos, they have the one change in Corey Oates. Apologies, we just ended up pausing that recording, so the motorbike sounds that were just going ham outside did not come through. But yeah, the one change for the Broncos, Corey Oates starts on the wing with Selwyn Cobbo dropping out of the side. We won't really discuss that. Brendan Piakora also comes into the side at second row, returning from injury, and Kobe Hetherington to the bench. Then we have the Storm and the Dragons. As we already mentioned earlier, Cameron Munster starts at 5'8", which moves Tyron Wishart to the bench. So very much time to cut ties with Tyron Wishart if you've owned him. He's been an absolute gun for you guys. I really wish I got on him back when I pointed him out as a pod player myself. Really wanted to own him, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. But yeah, he's on the bench. As I said, could mean good things for Harry Grant, but we'll have to wait and see. For the Dragons, Tyrell Sloan comes back in at fullback, and not too much else there. Zach Lomax back to the wing, and Matt Fionney out. Anything else for them? Not really. Blake Laurie comes onto the bench for Ben Murdoch-Masila, but not Supercoach relevant. Sharkies and Rabbitohs. Sam Stonestreet comes into the wing, obviously with Ronaldo Mulatalo injured. Really good for Stonestreet because he's an absolute gun. Really sucks for Ronaldo owners such as myself. For the Rabbitohs, Fletcher Myers starts on the wing with Alex Johnston's season-ending injury. Richie Kennar comes back into the centres, moving Michael Cheekham to the bench. Cameron Murray also returns from his suspension at second row, which moves Tallis Duncan also to the bench. Panthers and Knights are up next. The big one here, Isaiah Iongi. Definitely butchered that, but he gets his long-awaited NRL debut at fullback for the Penrith Panthers, which is really good for him. He's an absolute gun coming through the grades, and really good to see him get his shot, probably only for a week while Dane Laurie is out with that concussion, but we'll have to wait and see. Good to see Casey McLean also keeping his spot in the centres. Not too much else there. For the Knights, Fletcher Sharp is onto the wing for Anari Tuwala, I believe, or whoever was there before. Dylan Lucas also starts in the centres with Bradman Best out with that hamstring injury. Greg Marju, Kalen Ponga, all still named. Phoenix Crossland starts at halfback in this one as well. I forgot to almost mention. With Jackson Hastings dropped out of the side, that means Jaden Brayley is starting at hooker. Jack Cogger comes onto the bench, so I'd still assume there will be some play around there, whether or not Phoenix goes to hooker at some stage. Cogger comes on at halfback and Jaden gets a rest. But if you are a Jaden Brayley owner, I'd expect 60, 65, maybe even more minutes in this one. So it could be really good for those who still own him. And also good for Kai Pearce-Paul owners if you still own them. Now with Dylan Lucas playing in the centres, I don't see any minutes or any worry about him losing minutes there, Kai Pearce-Paul. So good stuff there for the Knights. Then again, it's against the Panthers, so doesn't really matter. Then we go to the Bulldogs and Raiders to close out the round. For the Bulldogs, Josh Addo-Carr returns on the wing, which means Blake Wilson drops out of the side. Stephen Crichton also returns into the centres, which means Jacob Kiraz moves from centre back to the wing, and Jarrell Skelton also drops out. For the Raiders, is there much going on here? There is not, and I believe that one closes out all the team list changes. So let's talk a little bit about trades this week. Before we get into what I'm doing, we'll do the old faithful and let's talk about the pod players of the week. So here we are, Best Buys round 22 point of difference players. Once again, if you're listening on an audio platform, this is your chance to go over and check out the Instagram, because if you can't watch along with the YouTube video, we do have this uploaded on the Instagram and you can see all the juicy stats which you might want to know when you're deciding what players to bring in at a low ownership. That's what pod means. So starting us off, for our point of difference players in round 22, Connor Tracy. Once again, stats up on screen or on the Instagram if you're looking. I'll read through what I've written over here. The current 9th most traded in player heading into round 22. Coaches are flocking to Connor Tracy after his 167-point performance against the Broncos. While I do think it can be seen as chasing points, I do see a lot of merit in bringing Tracy into your sides, as the Bulldogs are currently flying high. He has no buys to come. He has great versatility with his dual position availability, and he has a pretty solid base to make him a safe purchase. Plus, I just really love Connor Tracy as a footballer, so there's a little bit of bias in there, but I do like it. He's someone I've been contemplating essentially the entire season, just because I really like him and I want to own him. I love the work he gets through. I really love Connor Tracy as a footballer. I won't be bringing him in anymore. I think that ship has sort of sailed. It hasn't in a way, but it's not really where I'm going to be targeting in my center wings. My center wings have been pretty decent. It's almost tough when you miss out on that big sort of game and then you're like, damn, that's when I needed to bring him in. Look, as I said, no buys to come. Decent draw like Raiders, Dragons, Dolphins, Warriors, and Seagulls. All teams around that bloody 6th to sort of 11th mark. All teams really very close to each other in ladder, fighting for that top 8 spot. So it's a decent draw, especially with the way that the Bulldogs are playing. As I said, all the reasons that we just listed, 30 base, I really like him. Give it a go if you want, but don't expect him to be pumping out 167 scores on a consistent basis. Just, think about what he's been averaging before that, and that's probably where you're sort of going to sit. Let's move into our second player of the week, Hudson Young. Hudson Young has been on an absolute tear recently for the Canberra Raiders, with 2 tons in his last 2 games. While there are some tough games ahead for the Raiders, they seem to look for Hudson for the big plays in big moments, so I believe he will keep up some really good scoring. No buys to come, and playing for their season, he shouldn't miss any games as well. He's at a very expensive price point of $692,000, but if you want a point of difference player that could drive you up the ranks, Hudson could be that man. Yeah, as we said, the big thing that when we're looking at players at the moment is the fact that they play all games. And playing for teams like the Raiders that are fighting for that top 8 spot means they're not going to get rested when the season comes near the end. I expect Hudson to play every game barring injury or suspension for the rest of the season. I expect him to play near enough 80 minutes in every game. And while there are some tough ones in there, obviously Panthers and Roosters in 4 and 5 weeks respectively. Bulldogs this week and a couple of other top 8 teams. Actually, all 5 of these teams are top 8 in the Bulldogs, Seagulls, Cowboys, Panthers and Roosters. I think he's just got that ability that he can break a game open. And even if he doesn't, 47 base means he's scoring at least 50 points a game, essentially. He's safe. He's got upside. I really like it, but $692,000 is a bit expensive. But if you want to make that big balls play that no one else is going to, I'd really like a Hudson Young play for you. Let's look at our last player now, Cameron Murray. Cam Murray at just a tick over 500k is an absolute steal for a player who has averaged above 63 for the past 4 seasons. While he's named at second row and not locked forward, this should up his minutes, which should in theory make up for the reduced work rate. It also means he has the potential for some attacking upside. We know the quality of Murray, and I for one am very interested in bringing him in. Yes, so Cameron Murray, I mean, everybody's favourite player, Cameron Murray, is a gun. Him and Patrick Carrigan, I really like the look of. Very similar price points. Cameron Murray a little bit cheaper at $523, I believe. Paddy Carrigan's about $547. Carrigan's also more highly owned and, less likely to get attacking stats. But both of these players, we know how good that they are. Very interested in either of them. I could essentially trade via Jules, Ronaldo Mulitalo to either of those 2 players and actually free up cash. Not much, but to make any money from a trade like that is pretty darn good. The problem for me is my second row is really, really strong at the moment. So we'll have to see what we do. I will be talking a little bit about my trades in a second, but Cameron Murray, yeah, definitely someone I'm eyeing up. He did play 80 minutes in his last game before the suspension as well, by the way, which was before Origin. So you can expect probably very similar, especially if the Rabbitohs want to, keep fighting towards a very unlikely finals berth for the rest of the season. So I do like Cameron Murray. Let's get back into my team. And before we have a look at the exact trades I'm making, let's discuss a little bit the most traded in and out players. So the top 5 most traded in and out, or most traded out Ronaldo Mulatalo is the most traded out. Makes sense. He's injured. You can hold him. He will come back for theoretically the last 2 games. He could come back a little bit earlier, which isn't a bad thing to do. If you're low on trades, he's not a bad hold, but it's also tough to have someone of that quality not playing for you. So it makes sense for the trade. Terrell May, let's talk about him here. And let's talk about him in conjunction with the second most traded in player, Payne Haas. So a lot of people sort of just looking to move that on straight away. It's very similar price points. I think you end up paying 60 odd K, less than 60K. You pay, 50, 55, $56,000 to move Terrell May to Payne Haas. With how Payne Haas is playing, with the Broncos still fighting for their season, Payne Haas punched through 71 minutes at front row last week. I can see the merit in just doing that trade, especially when Terrell has now scored 39 and 54, I think, the week before. For my personal position, I'm not sure I will. I've got so much depth in that front row position. I don't really want to be spending my last 4 trades on front row, because Payne Haas, while if he was to average, say, 80, which is mental for the rest of the season, and I don't think he will, but let's say on a whim he averages 80 for the rest of the season, none of those are going to be 120 plus games. They're just going to be 80s, consistently throughout, which is good. It's going, as I said, that is still going to be, say if Curran's averaging 60, it's still 20 points more than Curran on a weekly basis, and that will all add up for the rest of the season. Terrell May is not really one of my starting front rowers at the moment, but he definitely is for a lot of other players out there. So I can make sense of that move. It just depends on your trade situation. I still have an inkling that Terrell May will get increased minutes in the next few weeks. Obviously, he's got this game and then the bye, and then Jared Warrior-Hargreaves comes back. I don't know what it is. It's more of a gut feel. At the end of last season, the Roosters really upped his minutes and turned to him in the big moments. I think Lindsay Collins and maybe even Spencer Leniu could get rested a little bit more towards the end of the season when the Roosters lock up this, top 4 finish, which they're bound to do, which means I'd expect Terrell May to just get the big minutes there. It's a big if. He's at a big price point, so I can see the merit in the sell, but yeah. He's a weird one, Terrell May. Really weird, especially to be using trades at front row at this point of the season. But there's a lot of other content creators out there that will be giving this opinion or different opinions on this. So take them all into account, and then you can make that decision on your own. Ruben Garrick, the next most traded out. That is just absolutely ludicrous to me. Obviously misses next week because of the bye and technically his concussion. But that's it. Manly have a fantastic draw to finish. He's averaging insane amounts of scores. If you're trading out Ruben Garrick, I don't know what's going on. Next up, Ruben Cotter, next most traded out. I wouldn't be doing it. It's just a 1 week thing. Maybe if you're going him to straight to Payne Haas, sure. But the dual position and how he's been playing, I'd probably just keep him. He does have another bye to come, so I can see the merit in it. But yeah, not really for me. Blaze Talangi, next most traded out, makes sense. And I won't really touch on anyone else down there. Not too relevant. Most traded in, Nathan Cleary, once again this week. A lot of people who didn't jump on him last week will be jumping on this week, and it makes sense. You have to own him. Payne Haas, we just discussed. He's definitely someone that you would like to own at front row. I think him and Adam Fanua-Blake are by far the 2 best, but he is at almost 700K. As I said, he's not going to have that massive score that can really win you around or push you up the ranks massively. So I'm not sure. He's a weird one. Ideally, you'd love to own him, but I don't. If you've got trades to do it, yeah, bring him in. But for me, I'm not too sure I think if you're looking at 5 or less trades, and unless your front row position's really dire, I wouldn't be looking to do it. But that's just me. Valentine Holmes, next most traded in, makes a lot of sense. They got the game against the Tigers this week. A lot of players sold him, including myself, during that Origin period, thinking that Cowboys had a really difficult way to finish the season. They still technically do. He lost a lot of cash, but at 615K, he's at a really nice price point. Cowboys are actually looking really good. So now those games which we eyed as really difficult aren't as difficult because of the way that the Cowboys are playing. And if the Cowboys are able to put a few tries in, even if they lose, Valentine Holmes is still going to convert those and get some good goal-kicking points. So I like the trade-in of Val. He's someone that I'm looking at this week. Jacob Kiraz, the next most traded in. Makes sense if you can get to him. I'd love to own Kiraz for the run home. We already mentioned Tracy, so the Bulldogs have no buys left, which is fantastic for Kiraz. Fantastic base, amazing try scoring opportunities. I love the Jacob Kiraz trade in, but he is 100K more expensive than a Valentine Holmes. So stuff to think about there. Then the next most trade in is Casey McLean. Again, a lot of people who didn't bring him in last week will be looking to do that this week. And we will just talk about the next most trade in under that. That is Aden Fanua-Blake. So if you don't own Aden, if you had to choose out of Aden and Payne Haas, very difficult one. They both have buys to come, but the Warriors buy is around 27, which can be a bit more difficult. I'd still be tempted to do Aden Fanua-Blake. They've got Parramatta this week. He's actually 30K cheaper than Payne Haas. He has a lot more upside in him too. Like, I don't think Payne Haas is actually scoring any hundreds on the run home. Well, Aden definitely can. We know he can. So I'd still be going Aden Fanua-Blake of the two. Just keep in mind of that round 27 buy. Beyond that, not too much more. Joseph Manu, 10th most traded in. Cameron Munster, the 8th most traded in. The Cameron Munster one, we'll speak on it. Very interesting. 149 break even this week. So expected to drop a heap of cash. Even if he scores 100, he's still dropping decent cash. But it is against the St. George Illawarra Dragons this week, where he could go pretty darn decent. I think the Dragons bounce back in a decent way this week. Maybe not winning, but I don't think Munster goes on an absolute tear and kills them. He's at a decent price point of just over 600K, and he could drop to, below that into the 500s. He will drop into the 500s, which is pretty enticing for a player of his quality. So someone that I might be considering next week, not so much this week. But yeah, that Dragons matchup is enticing. Now let's talk about my trades. Now, do I have any idea what I'm doing? Sort of. Now, we've played around with a lot of things. Obviously, this week, originally, we were planning on just holding trades in an ideal world, but injuries have come and sort of stuffed that up. The idea is that we just want to move straight to Ponga next week, which we will still do. Now, I could go to Ponga this week if I wanted to, but they do have that Panthers matchup. He's still got 106 break even. I want to wait and assess next week and hopefully get him in next week. I say hopefully because it's going to be dependent on the money. Because the trade I am currently thinking of doing is Alex Johnston out and moving him straight back to Valentine Holmes, which I believe, no, I turned Valentine into Ronaldo 4 or 5 weeks ago. So it wasn't the exact trade, but I'm thinking of getting Valentine Holmes this week. I'm believing in the Cowboys a lot more than I did when I sold him. He's got the Tigers this week in essentially the easiest VC of your life game in that Thursday game. I think that's just so clear cut to do if you own a Valentine, if you own a Scott Drinkwater still. Really love a VC there, which we'll discuss in the captains. He does have a bye to come and a pretty difficult draw. Where are we? So Tigers, decently easy. Broncos, which, the Broncos aren't as bad as what we thought they were when we originally sold. Raiders is a decent draw for him, but then he closes out. Then he has a bye, and then Melbourne and Bulldogs, which is a tough finish to the season. The other players that we have been contemplating are, as we said, Cameron Murray and Patrick Carrigan. Now, the cool thing with them is via our duels and moving Fermor down and whatnot, we can bring in them and actually make a little bit of money. And I like what they're, I like their sort of price point and what they can produce for the rest of the season. I think they'll both average 70 plus minutes. In terms of points, I think they both average 65 plus for the run home. It's tempting, especially because so the risk with Valentine Holmes that we're facing is if we bring him in, we have 112,000 remaining. So let's just toy around with the whole bringing Kalen Ponga in this week. Spoiler alert, we can't. We are 20K short of bringing in Kalen Ponga this week, but that's okay because we didn't want to bring in Kalen Ponga this week. The problem then arises, he's 106 break even. So I've done the math. If Kalen Ponga scores anything over 78 points against the Panthers, I cannot afford to bring him in. And he has been my goal for this for a long time. So it's an interesting and a risky play to bring in Valentine Holmes because I'm banking on KP going below 78. And yeah, against the Panthers, it makes sense. He definitely can, but it's still Kalen Ponga. So yeah, it's risky, but I think I'm going to run that risk because I really want that Valentine Holmes matchup against the Tigers this week. You know, if it doesn't come off, if Kalen Ponga does score above 78 points and I can't do it in one trade, I'm just going to have to use an extra trade to free up cash and get to him because I really want him. I don't know how I'll do it. I probably won't need to free up too much cash. I can probably sell looking around, Cal Iro if I have to. I really don't want to sell Ido. I'll sell Terrell May maybe and put Jack DeBellin into front row and bring in Josh Curran maybe. Yeah, that's where I'll look to, not Josh Curran, and bring in Cameron Murray. So that's probably what I'll look to do to free up the cash if Kalen Ponga goes over 78 points. But I'm really banking on him not, so I don't have to use an extra trade. Of course, we only have the 4 trades remaining, and after we use this one to go Alex Johnston to Valentine Holmes, we have 3 remaining. Now, I'm happy to run 2 is the ideal place to be for the run home for injuries because of the depth of my squad. Let's go with, we can bring Kalen Ponga in next week and 1 here. I have 2 remaining. My front row position, we've talked about this extensively, but the front row position is really good with Fanua Blake, Curran, May, DeBellin, who can all play in my front row, all at a high click. My second row is insane with Fafita, Crichton, Fermor, Nikita, Olakawatu, and then again, you can still count DeBellin and Curran. So all of them are good. I can have injuries and suspensions and restings happen. I should still be able to field a pretty darn good team. Halfback is good because I have those players, but again, if one of them goes down, that's a position that you have to make trades because it's such a high ceiling position. 5'8's good. Having Jaden Campbell, Jai Gray, I don't want to play, and if he drops out of the side when Latrell Mitchell comes back in, you know, we're just going to have to deal with that. And I don't think we'll trade him. I think we'll literally just run Jaden Campbell. Titans don't have any buys, so I don't need to worry about that. It's just whether or not he gets injured or dropped. That would stuff that around. But I don't really want to, I don't think I need a backup 5'8". And if Campbell goes down, then I'll just have to run with that. And then, of course, it'll come to our wingers, which we'll have an entire set of playing players there as of next week as well. And both fullbacks in. So 2 trades to go for as of next week when we do that Ponga one. Hopefully we don't have to use 2 trades to do Ponga and Murray in. But if we do, so be it. But yeah, 2 trades in case there are problems with the side, if there are injuries, suspensions, or restings for the last few rounds. So I'm pretty confident I can work with that. So we're just doing the 1 trade this week. That, of course, is Valentine Holmes in for the injured Alex Johnston. So let's look at, it's a risk, but I want to take it. I need to make sort of risks at this point of the season, and it's something I'm just going to bank on. It's the Penrith Panthers against the Knights team who haven't looked good. Ponga, don't score above 78, mate, please. Right, let's go into Sitvi starts before we do captains. A bit of a harder week this week with the injuries that we had. So Valentine Holmes obviously starts for me. Greg Marju essentially starts as well. Casey McLean will get another reserve against the Knights. Kale Ido will get a reserve just because the Sharks are a decent team. Who have the Sharks got this week? Rabbitohs. So that makes sense as well. Sam Walker, our 3rd reserve. Oh, and 4th reserve is Britton Nikita. So we don't have to change our reserves or too much. It's just Greg Marju coming into the side. The non-playing players that aren't injured, we have Jai Gray, Jack DeBellin, and Terrell May that are our main ones. So, yeah, we can live with that. We can live with that. So no Jake Simpkin this week as he's on the bye. No Hamole on the bye and suspended. No Garrick on the bye and injured. And no Ronaldo as he is injured. And no Viliami Fafita as our nuff. So we've still got really good depth to run with this. Like to have my playing players being, my reserve players being Sam Walker, Casey McLean, Cal Ido, and Britton Nikita. I am very much happy with that. We're going to start Nikita this week just so it looks a bit better. I like not having all of the same clubs next to each other. I'm just nitpicking like that. So yeah, pretty happy with the squad. Let's look at captains for the week. I mean, as we just said, Valentine Holmes, or if you're a Scott Drinkwater owner, against the Tigers, you VC that. Unless you have an awful AE in your side, like I don't even know who's possible to be a bad AE anymore. But unless there's a really bad AE, your VC. You don't captain straight on. I don't think there's many players out there, like many sort of low scoring players at the moment. You know, Sam Hughes can be a bit of a problem, but he's not going to score too much. I'd still be VCing this week. So that's where we're going with the VC on Valentine Holmes. Next up, we have Warriors and Eels. VCs, you could, if you wanted to take a massive punt on Shaun Johnson, I actually like it. I think Warriors go really well here. I think Shaun Johnson bounces back in a big way, and his goal kicking. So I like that if you wanted to take a punt on Shaun Johnson. If you own a Roger Tuivasa-Sheck on the wing, worth a VC if you want, but not too many options there, in my opinion. No one from the Eels. Dolphins, Roosters. You can have the VC on a Dominic Young, depending if you are VCing anyone in that Cowboys game. VC on Dominic Young, James Tedesco, Sam Walker, any of them, Angus Crichton if you wanted. All really, really good options. Titans and Broncos. Not sure I'd be VCing anyone here or captaining. You could look at a Reece Walsh if you own. I do own, but I won't be looking at it. That's because there's just better matchups to come later in the round. This is a weird week where I feel like it's going to be very cookie cutter. Everyone that you expect to win will win, except maybe, you know, Titans and Broncos and Bulldogs and Raiders are the only games that I really have small question marks about. So then we have Melbourne and Dragons. If you bring in Money Munster, you can put a C on him. It would be very big balls. Not for me, to be honest. I just don't think he has that upside, as he's not a goal kicker. He does have upside, but, you know, not the massive ceilings. Ryan Pappenhausen is another option, but again, I wouldn't be doing it if I owned. Sharks and Rabbitohs. There's no Sharks players that you captain anymore with Nico Hines out. It's good to own Sharks players like Jesse Ramian and Kayla Iro and Britt Nikota, like I do, but no one I'm looking at captaining. Then you have the big matchup of the round, the Panthers and the Knights. It makes sense. You just lock and load on Cleary once again. I know I will be. I'm banking pretty heavily on Holmes. I actually think he will go really well, and I have no AE nightmares in my side, so I'm actually keen on that. But if he doesn't go big, Nathan Cleary is going to go enormous as well. So that one just makes the most sense as a captain. And then Bulldogs and Raiders, there's no real captain options there. So your best VC is a Valentine Holmes. Your best captain is a Nathan Cleary. And luckily, I now own both. I think this is the way to go for my season. It's all going to be very scary about this whole Callum Ponga situation. 78 points is the magic number. I need him to go under. I think he can actually score 78, but he can't go anything over it. Otherwise, I can't afford him in one hit, and I want to own him. So we'll have to sort of suss that one out heading into next week, but let's pray he doesn't go massive, and then we can own him for the run home. But that is where we're looking at for the Sit V starts, the captains and the trades, which means we're done here, guys. Before we do finish up, I will sort of encourage you guys to go and listen to the round 21 round review podcast that we had Jai from NRL Blindside on that one. He is an absolute blindside NRL fantasy. So for anyone who's a fantasy player instead of a Supercoach player, or if you're both, because I'm not sure why you'd be watching this one and listening to this part of the podcast, one of the best minds out there. Jai he's so good. So blindside NRL fantasy, go give them a follow, give them a listen. Look at all their sort of stuff up on their page. But more importantly, go listen to my podcast with him, because it's a long one. So if you sit through it, I owe you a lot, but it's a good little ramble about some footy. So I encourage you guys to listen to that one. The other one, of course, the week prior, we did have the review of the Ruck Infringement podcast. So if you guys haven't listened to that one, a little bit outdated now, obviously, a week ago, but was some really good banter and stuff going on there. So go give that one a listen as well. Lots of plans heading into the back end of this season and into next season. Originally, we were going to just slow it up for the rest of the season and focus on making the podcast and the page massive for next season. But now I'm feeling rejuvenated, and I want to get everything out and ready for the next couple of weeks. So hopefully you guys are really excited for that, because I know I am. But that one will wrap us up now. Thank you guys. Once again, if you aren't following on the Instagram, go and do so at Chip and Chase Podcast. Lots of stuff that we do there, whether it's Supercoach, whether it's general NRL, whatever you want. Let me know what you want as well. Whatever you want to see, I can try and cater towards you guys. So, feel free to leave a comment on this video or swing me a DM over on the Instagram, and we can make that happen. That'll do us, however. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.